I feel like The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword has been one of the most controversial games within the Zelda series. With its not so outstanding motion controls, forcing the player to swing the Wiimote and nunchuck everywhere to control Link, well, was a concept not many people seemed to enjoy. When Skyward Sword was first revealed in E3 2010, Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of the series, demonstrated the concept of the motion controls, and let's just say, at the time, it didn't really look that good, already ruining the expectations of tons of fans before even getting a chance to play it. Fast forward to the end of 2011, and the game was out. Me being the huge Zelda fan that I am, the motion controls were the last thing that would stop me from playing it. As long as it was a Zelda game, I had to play it. Now, with that said, I will strongly say that the motion controls did not ruin the game's experience for me. Granted, I had some issues with it, but in the end, I actually really enjoyed it for what it was worth. So wait, this is a video complaining about Skyward Sword and not including the motion controls? Yes, because that wasn't the game's biggest issue. I feel like tons of fans blame the motion controls for ruining Skyward Sword, but they really weren't that bad. If anything, most of the game's unique and exciting gameplay segments revolved around using the motion controls, making it feel like the Wiimote and Nunchuck were an equivalent of Link's sword and shield. It added a very immersive experience to the game that without, Skyward Sword wouldn't feel the same. But being honest, at the end of the day, like most, I prefer playing most of my games on a standard controller. But my point is, if you look past that, you'll find much more to this game. Okay, so the motion controls isn't the issue. Then what is? Now before I get into that, let me just mention that personally, Skyward Sword's story is by far my favorite within the series. With it being the very first in the game's timeline, telling the story of how Hyrule was first created, the story of its first hero, and the creation of the Blade of Evil's Bane, it's a game that any fan of the series must play just for its story. But that might be the only reason. Even though Skyward Sword has its cast of unique and interesting characters all tied together with a very well put together story, that's all I feel the game truly offers. See, my issue with Skyward Sword is unlike most Zelda games, the game is very linear. Now don't get me wrong, most Zelda games have a very linear start to them, forcing you to follow its story until you reach a certain point, but eventually opening up to this massive world to explore. And that's one of the many charms about Zelda games, the sense of exploration. But sadly, Skyward Sword gives me the complete opposite feeling when playing it. The game is so focused on its story that the gameplay really suffers, making the gameplay sections in between story arcs unoriginal and repetitive. And that really shows once completing the first 3 temples. The game turns into this repetitive grind with revisiting the same 3 provinces again and again. And I feel like repetitive describes the game very well in that regard. See, not only do you revisit the same 3 provinces again and again, but in each province you do the exact same thing. From searching in each province's spring for Zelda, to locating the province's sacred flame to tempering your sword, to visiting the dragon of each province. The game lacks in originality when it comes to gameplay objectives. I felt like I was doing the same thing again and again so that I can reach another arc in the game's story, and honestly, that's what kept drawing me in. The story, not its gameplay. Though I still really enjoyed the game's dungeons and side questing, it wasn't enough to really hold the game together. One of the things that really bothered me was its lack of exploration. Even though the 3 provinces were very big, they got old very fast. Especially with how linear they were structured, once you made it through a province once, there wasn't really much else to explore. And even when soaring the skies, everything felt so barren. You only found yourself visiting these small, empty islands to collect a chest that a goddess cube would leave on your map. Along with that is the lack of original bosses. 2 of the game's major bosses you fight at least 3 times, each time being more tedious than before. One of them being the Demon Lord Girahim, which you fight 3 times, each time with different attack patterns but overall the same concept, and that is to strike his weak spots using the motion controls. As much as I love the concept of Girahim, having him take 2 boss slots for dungeons is a little much, especially with how little his fight style changes each time. But along with that, you also fight the Imprisoned 3 times, each time no more fun than the last. It's like they made the most boring boss battle repeat again and again. Like, I cannot stress how much I absolutely hate the Imprisoned battles. Not only is it a waiting game to knock him down and repeat the same 3 strikes on his head to reseal him, but you're also timed before he reaches the top of the sealed grounds, making it even more difficult because you're under time constraint. And these battles occur at each major point within the game's story, every time with the seal breaking and having to re-seal him. And it just adds to this repetitive nature the game has. I feel like I'm seeing the same thing again and again. Even at one point in the game, you retake on the very first dungeon again for almost no reason. And that's just my major issue with Skyward Sword. It just reused the same assets again and again without changing much to it, making this 20+ hour game feel like a 6-hour game played 3 times in a row. But that's just its gameplay, because the story sells it to me. Skyward Sword has so much potential, and it sucked that it wasn't more, but in the end it was still a great installment for the series. From its lovable characters, jaw-dropping story, and its breathtaking music, the game still shines compared to most Zelda games. But when compared to its core gameplay, it truly lacks. And that's why Skyward Sword as a game was bad in my opinion, but delivered the best in story and music. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. I thought it'd be fun to share my personal opinions with my issues with Skyward Sword. Overall, I still enjoy the game and love it for what it is. It's just, there's a lot of issues I have with it, but it's not the motion controls. And that's why I want to make this video, to share with you guys that no, I'm not agreeing with everyone else. I don't think the motion controls are the biggest issue, because they're not. You can seriously look past that, but there are a couple other things you can't really look past in Skyward Sword. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this video for what it is, and thank you all so much for watching. I've been ZeldaMaster, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!